Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be hosting. My name is Diana Royanotis, and you may know me as Diana Dimples or Diana Dimples Desk. And today I am going to be hosting this CDPD event that we have this presentation. And our special guest today is Katrina Strohl. And I'm really excited because she is one of the professionals of excellence. She's being featured today. And her presentation is called Absolutely Not Setting Personal Boundaries at Work. And I know that's a topic that is very important and so crucial in our work professional journey. So, without further ado, I'm going to give you some details about Katrina. So, Katrina Strohl is a Navy veteran who served as an aviation and structural mechanic, AM. Now, with over 9 years of HR experience, several HR certifications, and multiple career coaching certifications, Katrina continues to serve others. Katrina, sorry, Katrina serves as the HR director for Alonesy, a nonprofit that provides mentorship for teams and hopes to reduce the stigma of mental health, and as a career advisor for 2U Inc. 2U Inc. A technical institute. In 2018, Katrina decided to take her own life, and since then has become a huge advocate of mental health. Katrina was recently certified in mental health first aid and hopes to continue her education in mental health to reduce the stigma and ensure Alonesy's mission stays true. When not giving her all to Alonesy's amazing mission, Katrina also hosts her own podcast, Absolutely Not, which is also the title of this presentation, which is about setting personal boundaries at work. So we can have Katrina come on to the stage. Welcome, Katrina.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about this topic today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about it because I think I need this. I'm so happy that I'm here. So thank you so much. And just so you guys know that are watching with us, Katrina's, you can post comment or you can post questions, but we're going to have them taken at the end of the presentation. So
Oh, great. So let's get started, everyone. I'm going to bring my presentation up and we're going to get into it. So once again, I am Katrina Strohl. I'm a certified career coach and HR consultant. I'm also the founder and owner and principal consultant of Fill Your Cup Consulting. And like she said, I host Absolutely Not weekly on Thursdays, and it's about setting personal boundaries at work. Before we get into setting personal boundaries, I'm going to hit y'all with some facts real quick. 80% of chronic disease is caused by lifestyle-related issues. 77% of people experience stress that affects their physical health. Nearly half of all US adults, 49%, say that stress have negatively affected their behavior. Nearly 1 in 5 American adults say that their mental health has declined since last year. Some of you are probably wondering, what the hell does that have to do with boundaries? So boundaries are set in place in order to ensure that we are safe, that our mental health is stable, that our overall health is sustainable. That's what that has to do with boundaries. So when we have boundaries in place, we reduce ourselves from being a statistic, most of the statistics that are labeled here, which are actually related to stress. But we'll dive into what to do for boundaries. The importance of boundaries. Like I stated before, boundaries set us up for success in mental health and wellness and just our overall being. Like the fence you see in front of you, it's indicating where something stops, where we want trespassers to feel that they're crossing a line. This fence, although not fancy, not heavy duty, not made out of bricks, is still a fence and still a line that should not be crossed, just like our boundaries. Our boundaries also tell our future employers our expectations. They indicate to our future employers or our present employers what we believe healthy relationships look like. That way they know, oh, that's not a relationship I can provide here. and you know, oh, then I don't want to enter a relationship with you. And I know I'm using the term relationship, but these professional connections and all the interactions we have in our work environments are just that, relationships. Lastly, they showcase our limits to our employers and the people that work with us. When we set our boundaries firmly, then the people around us that work with us know, hey, these are the limits I have in place, and I'm not able to move forward with this project, with the assignment that you're asking me to do, because I have my limits in place. Overall, boundaries exhibit to other people that we work with our values. And I'm saying our values because I encourage everyone to ensure that our values are grounded and in place before we move into an organization. That way, before you move into an organization, you're able to discern whether or not their values and your values align. Because when they do not align, your expectations will not align, your idea of healthy relationships will not align, and your limits just will not align. And that all goes back to the values you brought to the organization. So at this point, I'm guessing a lot of you are wondering, okay, boundaries, stress, mental health, got it. Now what? What should I be doing in order to set healthy boundaries at work? Lucky for you, I'm here for you, and I'm going to tell you how to do so. Once again, we want to be proactive with our boundaries. We want to have those boundaries set in place, listed down on a piece of paper, knowing, hey, this is what I will not tolerate at work. This is what's going to make me leave a position. This is what I need to have in place in order to be a successful employee at this organization. That way, nobody that's a part of the relationship, whether it be your coworkers, your manager, your leadership team, are surprised at when you set those boundaries or when you reinforce them. The process that I'm going to go over now is the reactive state of boundaries. Say somebody crosses your boundaries, these are the steps you need to take to ensure that they are aware of your boundaries and that they won't cross it again. So the acronym that I use for my process is T time. I know, right? I need to trademark it. It's cute. But the T in tea time stands for time. The E in tea time stands for emotion. And the A in T stands for action. This acronym is changeable. You can change it to eat time, 8 time, tea time. But you know, I like tea time, so I kept it at T. It is very important that you have these 3 components in the script. So that way your boundaries can stay assertive and direct. So there's no confusion in the communication. So the other party knows, oh, this is a serious boundary and I should not cross it. Here are some examples on tea time. For the time aspect, we want it to be specific, but not too specific. So for example, yesterday during daily meeting, that way you're describing the scene for that person. It was yesterday and it was during daily meeting. We only have 1 daily meeting, so you know exactly what I'm talking about, Brad, Chad, John. And that way they can't really say, oh, when yesterday? I don't really remember. Yes, you do. You was there. Moving on to emotion. Describe the emotion you felt when your boundary was crossed. This part of tea time is the hardest part that people have difficulty describing, and that's okay. Take the time you need to get ready for that tea time. Get ready for it. Go to your desk, think about how that made you feel when they crossed your line, but make sure you have these components in place when you set up time to have tea with this person. You like that? Have tea with this? Okay. Emotions. I felt disrespected. So far in tea time, we have yesterday during daily meeting, I felt disrespected. And then we're going to follow up with A, the action. Why did you feel disrespected? I felt disrespected when you interrupted me. Now we are so specific that if Paula, Denise, Brad, Chad wanted to say, I don't remember it, you know for a fact they're lying. This is extremely specific and it paints a vivid picture of them. of what occurred. And that's what we want, for them not to have any room to manipulate the situation because they know what we're talking about. So all together, we'll go over this T together. Yesterday, during the daily meeting, I felt disrespected when you interrupted me. That 100% paints a picture for the other party. It tells them exactly when something happened, how you felt about the situation, and what they did to make you feel that way. Now, tea time is not complete because the A part of tea time has a 2-part process. And I just want you all to know that tea time can change. Once again, it can be eat time, 8 time, whatever you feel comfortable putting in a statement. Just like the raggedy fence we saw before, it doesn't matter how we're presenting the boundary. They just need to know that that boundary exists so it doesn't happen again. The second part of the A in tea time is accountability. Oh, yes. If your skin is crawling right now, just from the word accountability, then you're right. You're absolutely right for your skin crawling, because that's what we wanted to do. We want the other party to know we mean business about ourselves. We love ourselves so much and respect ourselves so much that we want accountability in this process. We can have the tea and crumpets, but after that, we need accountability. So what accountability looks like? It looks like us moving forward in this relationship. And that's what tea time and accountability is about. We want to be able to continue this relationship, but I also want to be safe in this relationship. So in order for me to feel safe and comfortable in this relationship, I need accountability on your part, and I need to know how we're going to continue this relationship moving forward. That looks like, could you see where I'm coming from? So after you spill the tea with them, oh, you like that? After you spill the tea with them, then you ask them, could you see where I'm coming from? This question puts the responsibility, the accountability, and next steps on that party. If they say, no, I can't see where you're coming from, then you know that that person is not willing to move forward in this relationship, in this professional environment, is not willing to make changes in order for you to feel comfortable in it. And we'll talk about the next steps after that. What can we do next time to prevent this? This one is a question that leads to collaborative efforts. Although it's still asking for their input, it's saying, hey, we're a team in this. I know that you love our relationship as much as I do. What can we do to prevent this? Do you want to go over notes before the next meeting? Do you want to have a conversation before the next daily meeting? Do you want to make sure we're on the same page before the next meeting? Because I don't want to be interrupted again, and I don't want you to have to do that again. What can we do the next time to prevent this? So if you don't want a huge conflict or a huge blowout to happen, this is a good step forward. How can we work together on this? Much like what can we do next time to prevent this? This again is asking for collaborative effort. It's still asking for their input, but let me tell you, I'll meet you halfway and we can talk it out. Next time, for those of you out there, myself included, who are way too far gone in our boundary setting journey, next time is the tool for you. This is setting you up to give that person instructions on how to never cross your boundaries again. Next time, do not interrupt me during the meeting, and make sure that you have your notes in order before going in so that doesn't happen again, period. Because we're not having this happen again. Moving forward, that's my favorite one, because it's telling people, okay, we have had tea time. We have sipped all the teacups. We have had tea and crumpets. Moving forward, I don't want to have tea time with you again. And I don't think you want to have this conversation again. But if we have to have this conversation again, here are the consequences. Here's what's going to happen. Here, you already know how I'm going to feel if we have this conversation again. So moving forward, this is what's going to happen. I love moving forward because you already know it's a setup. This is what's going to happen. So with tea time in place, you paint a picture for that person. Of course, depending on where you are in your boundaries journey, you can definitely use these accountability tools to ensure that the other party knows where you are in your boundaries and what's going to happen the next time this occurs. That's the most important part. The accountability is not only on them, but on you. Because if you don't hold yourself accountable, sis, how are you going to hold them accountable? Excuse me, sis, bro, fam, how are you going to hold them accountable? You won't be able to. Time to leave. Like I stated earlier, sometimes when you have tea with people, they're not going to like the tea. And more often than not, that happens a lot. I'm going to share with you now some responses on when tea time doesn't go well and what you should look for when that person doesn't want to share tea with you. The first, are you sure? They've never done that before. This is if you go to a leadership person, someone in your leadership team or your management team, and talk to them about when your boundaries are crossed. Are you sure? They've never done that before. You're not being a team player. This could be when you're talking to Paul, John, Jim about interrupting you, or simply stating, hey, I'm not going to be working past 5 p.m. anymore, especially if I'm not being paid overtime. If they respond with, you're not being a team player, that is an indicator. No need to have an attitude. Boundaries, the intent of boundaries, like we stated before, are to protect ourselves, are to ensure that we are in an environment that has enough room, has enough space for us to grow as the individuals that we are. And they have all the limits and expectations and healthy relationships in place that we're able to blossom into the professional we want to be. So when you set your boundaries politely over tea and crumpets, and they say no need to have an attitude, that is also an indicator that someone has, one, never sipped tea before, never heard of healthy boundaries before, and probably will not be willing to have tea again. Ooh. Stop being so sensitive. I cannot tell you how much I have heard that throughout my career, and it is just not correct. I am not being sensitive in the way I want to be respected and treated at work. These are things I am owed because I am a human being who has emotions and wants to be a professional asset to your organization. The very least you could do is treat me like a human being. So stop being so sensitive is also an indicator. Are you sure you're not overreacting? For this response, and you see if anyone ever says this to you, it is an indicator that that person has never had tea before, aka healthy boundaries set at their place of work before, or had to have conversations regarding emotions before. Lastly, and my personal favorite, I know, but just try to hang in there. This is a huge indicator that your leadership team, your management team, or whoever you're going to talk about the constant crossing of boundaries in your workspace knows that a problem is present and just does not care. They would rather you suffer in silence than bring it up to them again. And they're asking you to be positive about it. These are all indicators. These are all indicators that it is time to leave. The examples that I shared on my last slide are examples of gaslighting, which is to manipulate someone by psychological means into questioning their own sanity, and of dismissive behavior, which is showing that something is unworthy of consideration. Both are huge indicators that an organization's culture is displayed through these mechanisms. If you go up and down that chain of command at that organization and you get similar responses to the one I said before, then you know it has to do with the culture of the organization. It's not just one person, it's not just Bob, it's everyone in the organization. And they have established that culture, and you won't be able to find those healthy relationships you're looking for. You won't be able to set those healthy boundaries you're hoping to set, and you won't be able to wiggle your values into their values because their values of gaslighting and dismissive behavior are already set. I want to be specific in what I'm saying here. So gaslighting, an example of that would be if you went up to your manager and said, hey, yesterday Jim and Bob were talking about Chelsea's breasts in the break room. Could you talk to them about that so that doesn't happen again? And your manager says to you, did anybody else hear that? You're the only person that's told me that. Are you sure that's what happened? I've never heard them ever talk like that before, so I'm sure you're mistaken. That is an example of gaslighting. It's trying to get you to think otherwise than trying to manipulate you into thinking that you're not sane. Dismissive behavior would be, dismissive behavior would be if you went up to that same manager or a different manager and said, hey, I can't really work properly because I don't have the right PPE. I'm getting a lot of headaches from the fumes on the floor here. Is there any way we could get the correct PPE we need to wear to do our job? And they say, that is neither here nor there. Go do your job. That is dismissive. It's dismissing all of your concerns and telling you that it's just not important, which are both indicators that it's time to leave. And in no way am I saying, okay, I got an indicator, I need to quit today. Once you get those indicators, though, this goes back to the accountability part of tea time. It's important to remember that that accountability is on us and the other person. Once we get those indicators, how are we going to hold ourselves accountable? We're no longer the victim. We are enabling this behavior if we continue to stay in these organizations. We are allowing these people to treat us like that. We are allowing ourselves to be in these environments. And trust me, I know there are a lot of situations where we're not able to leave organizations as quickly as we'd like, but it is very important that throughout this process to remember that we have total control, and we need to make sure we're planning a strategy on how to move out of this organization, that we have indicators that they do not care about us as a human being or healthy, or for setting healthy boundaries to create healthy relationships or our values. Ooh, all right, let's get out this negative fog. Lastly, none of us have a crystal ball in hand. If you do, please let me know so I can borrow it and maybe win the lottery one day. But none of us, most of us don't have a crystal ball, which is why we should never operate out of fear when it comes to boundaries. Of course, we can go to worst case scenario on how people are going to react to our boundaries, but we cannot operate from that stance. We cannot say, okay, I'm going to let them continue to treat me this way because I fear for my job, I fear for my position, I fear for the next promotion, I fear for the scrutiny that's going to happen after I set this boundary. When you operate out of that fear, you are disrespecting yourself, and you are disrespecting your values, you are disrespecting everything that you hold dear to you. And I want it to sound that harsh to you today just because it is. When you do not hold other people accountable for their actions and how they're treating you, regardless of what they believe it to be, you are disrespecting yourself and you're allowing harm to happen to yourself. With that, I would love to tell you that you are worth it. There are so many systems out there today, white supremacy and capitalism included, that are trying to get you to believe that you are not worth it. You are not worth the time of day. You are not worth the extra effort it takes to have you as an employee, to be the person that you are as an individual. And I'm here to say that's just not true. You are absolutely worth it. Everything that you need should be provided to you. And if they can't provide it, then goodbye. Goodbye. Write the check for somebody else, somebody who does not care about the boundaries and healthy relationships that we care about. In order to remind yourself on a daily basis that you are worth it, please remember that the intent of boundaries are to keep ourselves safe. They're never to harm other people. We're not setting boundaries to say, oh, I hate that guy, so I'm going to set a boundary. No, the intent is to ensure that we feel safe and we feel comfortable where we are. I specifically set a boundary at work to not talk about my hair. It makes me uncomfortable to have a conversation about how I do my hair, what kind of products I use, why my hair looks like this. So no, if that conversation is brought up, I say, I don't want to talk about that at work. Could we talk about the next project we're working on? Could we talk about your schedule for next week so we can meet up? But I do not want to talk about hair. And the intent is not to make anyone feel bad. Of course, I don't want people to feel bad around me. I do want them to feel comfortable, but I want me to feel comfortable first. Who put me first? Me. As should you. So please remember the intent when you set boundaries to keep yourself safe. And we remember that intent by using I am statements. I am an amazing employee. Say it again. I am an amazing employee. They are lucky to have me. I need these things in place to continue to be an amazing employee. And I will set boundaries so that I can continue to be an amazing employee. So when you are thinking about, is this a big deal or not? Is this something I should bring up? Is this a boundary that I need to set? I'm here to tell you it is. You are worth it. You are worth the extra effort. You are worth the boundary put in place. You are worth everything on the planet. And if I could, I would give it to you. Love you. But with that, please remind yourself, I am an amazing employee. I need these things set in place so I can continue to be an amazing employee, whether that's not having conversations about your hair, or if it's I need to leave early on Friday so I can take my son to soccer practice, or I can take him to his doctor's appointment. I will have this conversation with my manager, and I will not pretend that I have a crystal ball. If you continue to operate out of fear, it just will not work. So please remember your intent today. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I'm Katrina Strohl. Once again, I'm the founder and principal consultant of Fill Your Cup Consulting. And I'm the host of Absolutely Not, which is a weekly live podcast series. So come check us out and we talk more about these similar topics. You can find all my work at www.fillyourcupconsulting.com. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Katrina. That was a great topic for me. I'm just like sitting here like, oh my gosh, I really needed this. So I'm so appreciative of it. And I love tea. I'm a big tea nerd. So I really, really love tea time. That's going to stick with me. That's definitely one that I will have lodged in my memory.
Oh.
So I have some questions here that we got, and we'll probably still get more coming in. And I had a kind of question similar to this one. So Rhonda asks, at what age did you truly find your voice? And I have a follow-up one.
So I would say around 13 is when I started being called a union leader by several people who were older than me. And I think it's just because I constantly was advocating for people that looked like me and that acted like me. So I would say 13. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure what that question is for, but let me know if you need
Yeah.
a follow up.
Yeah, Rhonda, if you have any other things you'd like to add to that, just post another question. And I wanted to ask you specifically, especially that you're made this podcast, and what, if you don't mind sharing, what inspired you to get this started, like to focus on boundary setting?
Right. So, like was shared in my bio, in 2018, I decided to take my own life. And it was very much because I worked in an environment, specifically the military, where boundaries were not something talked about on a daily basis, and you were just chewed up and spit out on a daily basis. When I learned about boundaries, it wasn't until I was almost gone from this earth, which is way too late. So my passion now is to make sure that people on this earth know about boundaries so they don't have to go through the journey that I've been through.
Wow, that's great. I love that. I love that you're uh, inspired by your own experience to help other people out so that they don't have to replicate that type of trauma. That's so amazing and empowering. So thank you so much. And Rhonda did say, she said, "Wow, 13, that's excellent," and I agree. That's great. um, and then, oh yeah, I had a question about tea time. Do you have any suggestions about, like, if you're working, like what, maybe not specifically the time of day, but when to sort of bridge that subject or set it up, or sort of going into how you get a tea time schedule?
And like any meeting, you want to make sure that you have the great amount of time to talk about this topic. So I'd say set up about an hour meeting. You can explain to the person what it's going to be about, but you don't want to go into detail before having tea time, because tea time is ensuring that you are important enough to have that time set aside to go over this topic. Um, when, if we use the example I used in the presentation, so Bob cut you off yesterday at the meeting, they took a whole day to kind of process it, how they felt. And that's why tea time is so important. You need to make sure you have those three components available to you before you sit down at that meeting. If you don't, then you're not ready to have tea.
Right. Oh, and then I know that T, it stands for time, emotion, and action. But we are being asked if you can review T again with an example.
Oh, no problem. So let's talk about gaslighting. Specifically, gaslighting that happens in front of an entire. I worked in manufacturing for a while, so this happened consistently. In our daily meetings, people would gaslight me. I would say, "Hey, people aren't being able to clock in and clock out. Is this an issue that we can kind of talk about during daily meeting or go over in the safety protocol or how to section of the meeting?" And the manager of the plant would say, "Are you sure? Are you not reading the reports correctly? Is like, have you run the reports again? Could you try to run the reports again?" Of course, this was very early on in my career. I would go back to my desk and say, "Why the hell did that happen? What was that? Like, what was that?" So when you go back to your desk and say, instead of saying, "What was that?" I would encourage you to write down tea time. Okay, time, that was the daily meeting. Emotion, I was confused and angry. And then the action was when he questioned my actions as if I
Mm,
wasn't doing my duties properly. And then the accountability, which is the second part of A, would be me going back to that plant manager and saying, "Hey, what the hell was that?" Don't say what the hell. Hey, can we talk about what happened yesterday? Or can we go over the reports? Maybe I'm not doing it properly, but I don't like that you ask me those questions in front of everybody. Next time, could you pull me aside so that doesn't happen again? I just feel like I was being a little singled out, and I don't like that feeling. If for some reason that plant manager had said, "No, figure that shit out yourself," now we know that that plant manager doesn't have the best interest of me or anyone else in that organization. Like, I'm asking you about time cards. Figure it
yeah.
out. But yeah, that's another example.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see any other questions here. This is a great comment here. If you don't speak up, you will have line jumpers who try to take advantage of your niceness, which, yes, I completely agree with that one.
And what I want to emphasize that niceness part is, once again, there are so many people, even now when I talk about boundaries, like, oh, that sounds so rude. That sounds so, it makes me feel uncomfortable that I would have to have these conversations. And that part of the boundaries journey is something you're going to have to unlearn, unfortunately. Niceness isn't really nice if you're not being nice to yourself. You're not respecting yourself in the journey. You're allowing people to, once again, take advantage of you.
Right. And that was from Aretha Costley. And now we have another comment here from Rhonda, and she says, Katrina, I want to applaud you. I came from a very strict upbringing where you keep your mouth shut. It's the you don't want to offend anyone situation, but I realized in my mid to late 20s how imperative it was to speak up. It is the difference between commanding respect and being disrespected.
Hmm. And once again, the intent with boundaries is simply allowing the other party to know what you need, what your expectations are in this relationship. And you don't have to be rude about it. I cuss a lot and I'm very a loud person, but you don't have to do that at all. You could simply have tea with that person. And it's literally telling them, hey, I want you in my life so bad that I'm willing to have tea with you to describe everything that I need. And if they're still not willing to bend at all or um, cater to your needs, then you know, okay, great, I will not continue in this relationship.
Right. Yeah, that's so important to be able to communicate that so that you're heard and you can really evaluate if that person is going to take the necessary actions to stay in your life. So I think that's so important. And I think that this presentation is so empowering for everyone that's watching. So thank you so much for that. And let me see. Okay, let's see. Can this can this be done before the bound? Oh, okay. So I think what this question is asking is, can you have a tea time before the boundary is set upon or crossed? Like,
Yes, you should definitely be. Oh Lord.
where she is. You're muted. Oh,
Oh,
I don't think she meant to do that, but that was her comment. Oh, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, guys. I was muted. See, I told you, Katrina, I always do. It's always me, not the presenter. It's me. So Aretha says, I set boundaries the day I walk in a job. It's important.
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what I was saying was, can you actually do that before the boundary is set upon?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And honestly, everyone who's listening, you
Mm-hmm.
should be having weekly tea times with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to yourself about the boundaries that you're setting on a weekly basis. And that tea time, although you don't have the action, you have the concept in your brain somewhere as to when that's going to happen. Or in your past experiences, me from manufacturing, I know there are boundaries that I never want to be crossed again. So before you move into those new organizations, you should be having multiple tea times written down. And in the interview, just like, okay, hold up. Do you guys disrupt or interrupt women during meetings? No? Oh, okay, great. What's your sexual harassment policy look like? What does the reporting look like? Because I don't like being sexually harassed at work. Okay, great. And if for some reason you get through 5 of the tea times you've written down and they've only gotten 2 right, then sorry, thanks for playing.
Right.
Do you think people would be honest during an interview situation? Like,
So The cool thing about boundaries is, and emotions as people, we're really multifaceted people, but we're really bad liars. Specifically, I just had a job interview and I asked that actual question. Hey, what does your sexual harassment policy look like? What does the reporting look like? And the person turned bright red and kind of scooted back in their chair to kind of process it. So there's a lot of manipulators out there, but we as human beings are going to be able to pick that up on that. And if you don't believe them during the interview, okay, then I'd like to see your employee handbook if that's possible.
Okay. I don't know. Okay, I give you. I mean, I think like, all right. You can interview people who don't know anything about those things, right? So you can interview a hiring manager who is just that.
And they don't want to work for you if you don't know.
But they may not be the person who's privy to that information in the organization, is what I'm saying. So if I am the finance manager and I'm interviewing a new bookkeeper and you ask me that question, I'm not privy to that information unless one of my actual staff happen to have been someone who was accused of sexual harassment and I happen to be someone who was interviewed during the process, right? So I just want to put it in context. Like sometimes even that person who you were asking could have just been flush embarrassed, right? Like, I don't know how to respond here and I don't have that information. So I just like,
right.
I'm just thinking of it practically, like
even in the moment, their response is what caters to my boundary. If for some reason they freak out and start talking louder and say, we don't have that happen here.
Yes, that's where I was going.
If they turn bright red and say, I am so sorry that I don't know that information and I can get it to you. Would you like to check out our website or something? Then it's an indicator to me like, oh, cool, you just don't have that information. But if they start gaslighting or dismissing in that interview process, then oh, dang, y'all act like that here?
Yeah. And then the other thing is some people don't know that they do these things. So if I ask a man, you know, does he mansplain? He may not know he mansplains.
Right. Which is why it's so important, like in my presentation, to have your values and your expectations so strict and grounded before you go into that interview process. I know we're in the times where everyone's applying for 100 jobs in one day, but it's so important to be so funneled out in your process because you're bringing yourself into a whole organization. If that organization is trash and you're not, it's not going to take away from the fact that that organization is dysfunctional and won't function with your values that are in place.
Yeah.
It's interesting to open up access news just like we drop with tea. Yes, Candy. I don't know who you are, but yes, spill the tea whenever you get the chance. One question that I have is how faithful is your organization with diversity? Yes, especially now that diversity is such a buzzword, it's important to ask those questions in the interview process. Like, okay, great. When did you first found your diversity team? If they say in the past 6 months, then you know there is a reason for that. If they say, oh, we have numbers since 4 or 5 years ago, then oh, okay, cool, great. I'm glad you guys are growing in that.
Yeah, that's a great one, especially right now to see if that is something that they really truly value, and as opposed to just using as a buzzword or to get congratulations. So I think that's very important. And yeah, Rhonda has, I like it, Katrina. It's true. When you walk through the door, they are forming an impression based on your entire approach. I love those questions on a first interview. That's different. And they should be able to provide that information for you or give you somewhere to research it.
Right. Even if you are that finance manager, you don't know the HR manager, you don't know somebody in the chain of command that can give me the answer, you will be able to. And if you don't, then that scares me as an employee who's going to work under you. You don't know who works in your organization?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I have left a job after a month because of a passive aggressive leader who talked with twice. Exactly. I'm not finna play with you at work. I have to be here 40 plus, which is why I hone in so much on setting personal boundaries at work. We as Americans constantly work. Even when we're at home, we're working. Because of the pandemic, we've all had really hard transitions on how to work from home, and our boundaries, especially if we didn't have any before, got skewed, got all over the place. So now is definitely the time to be worried about boundaries. And I'm glad you were able to leave that job after a month, because if you have tea time with people and they give you the answers that we talked about earlier, then you know there's nothing you can do.
Oh, yes. And Aretha also said 98% of your message is nonverbal. So I think that was really cool, like what you were saying earlier about how people respond and how to gauge that based on their body language and their demeanor.
Right. I've had managers before. I would have tea time with them, and they would say, they wouldn't really say anything. They'd be like, okay, let's come back. But their face would be like, I don't care what you're talking about. Or like, sure, let's talk about this again. Like, and I would know, okay, you do not care about what I'm talking about right now.
Right.
My concerns are not your concerns.
Yeah, and I like what you said too about doing this and the interview, because that can be so revealing about the experience that you'll have and what you'll be up against. If someone just first meeting you can't even be considerate of those questions. And then, oh, and Rhonda had another comment here. She says, "Do you remember?" She was talking to Danette, and she said, "Do you remember I left a job after a month because they asked me to work 3 hours a day, then did a 360 degrees."
Oh my gosh.
So it's like a weird experience like that too.
And once again, that's why it's so important to dive deep in the interview process. When they give you that open-ended question at the end and say, "Do you have any questions for me?" You just, "I sure do. I have all of the questions."
I have a whole list here. Let's see if there's any other comments or questions here. And Rhonda had another comment earlier that she said, "And as minorities, we've been taught to stay quiet, but opening your mouth and setting boundaries is the key in all things."
Mm-hmm.
And then also,
with that statement, my last episode of Absolutely Not, we went over microaggressions and how to set boundaries with microaggressions, just because that's not something that we've practiced as children who look the way that we look, or we weren't in school learning about how to combat microaggressions or how to set boundaries against them. So it's really important now that we take this message of boundaries and kind of place them everywhere that we can, whether it's microaggressions or whether it's just, I need Friday off to take my son to the doctor.
right.
Boundaries are very important.
Definitely. And then Rhonda also said that not setting boundaries is the cause of so many scenarios gone wrong. This includes family and friends also.
Mm-hmm. Although my show is primarily catered to setting boundaries at work, these are lessons that we take with us to our personal lives. We'll be able to implement them once again wherever and whenever we see fit.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great overall tool that you can use in any situation. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Oh, you're muted.
I don't have any more questions in the chat, but so Diana, you can go ahead to the questions. Guys, if you have any questions, please drop them, or comments, please drop them into the chat. And I see that Candy says clients also. Yes.
Oh my gosh. When I started my business, I didn't know the difference between business boundaries but I learned very quickly. Learned so very quickly.
Right. All right. So you guys can keep commenting any questions that you have, but I'm going to start with the questions, the three questions that are always asked at the end. So, first question is, and this refers to Corona Days Professional Development Group's mission statement, um, which is to increase marginalized and BIPOC groups access to employment opportunities and representation in the workplace by providing our members with free training, mentorship, other resources. And so, in with that being the mission, um, have you ever been marginalized by others, and if so, in what
Um, so I hold several labels that could be perceived as part of marginalized groups. I am queer, I am Black, I'm a veteran, and I am a female. So on a daily basis, I believe I'm placed into those groups quite frequently. But the female part of those labels, very much so. I'm constantly, not constantly, but when I worked in manufacturing, my body type was described a lot. My voice was described a lot. My military service was described as more volunteer service than when they would speak to other male veterans. It would be very like, man, thank you for your service. I know you were out there, guns blazing, and but when they spoke to me, they was like, oh, that's cool. Like, thanks. So yes.
Yeah, I think that that's very unfortunate that I had that experience, especially with your service being like kind of contrasted like that. That's very unfortunate. That I'm frustrated by that. And this question, this is one of my favorite questions. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self when you started your journey?
So 2018 me specifically, before I decided to end my life, I would have told her, "Oof, oh my gosh, maybe I should have heard these questions." Um, but I would have told her that it is so not worth it. Um, this job, this paycheck, these ideals that you are forcing upon yourself for them to not even accept you, not even a little bit. Oh my gosh. Um, they will never accept you. And it would be so much better if you just lived the life you needed to live. Oh, yeah, that's what I would tell her.
I love that. That is a beautiful message, and just hearing that is so inspiring to me because I think that a lot of times we get into this mode of like the external expectations and we lose sight of what's really important and can like you said, you can go to a point where you're just at that brink of that, and that is it's so insane in a way to think that we have been sort of conditioned to be so uh, pursuing that external validation or expectation, especially from people that don't even like us, like
Right.
people that won't ever accept us, like you said, no matter what you did. So I really applaud you for having the courage to come out and just speak about this, first of all, but then to also have created something and being part of something to help others that may be in the same situation. So I really commend you for that. I think that's awesome. So just wanted to say that before we move on. Next question.
Oh, thank you so much.
And then the last question is, what would you like to leave everybody with? What would you want to be the takeaway for this?
um, Specifically, that crystal ball part of my presentation. I think so often we are afraid of ruffling any feathers, whether they're little feathers or big feathers, making any waves. We just try to, today I heard it for the 50 billionth time in my life, keep your head down and just try to make it through. I have heard that since I was a child. Um, just,
Mhm.
just be quiet and try to make it through. That is no way to live. That is not a way to live. That is barely surviving. This life is so very short, and I've experienced how short. Oh my gosh, I've experienced how short this life really is, and I do not want anyone else to experience that. If tomorrow that bus skips that curb, or there's a rock on the highway, or and I don't put this on anybody, will you have lived the life you wanted to live? Boundaries will help you in that aspect. It will help you move into organizations that are about you first and foremost, and that see you fully as the human being and the individual you are.
I love that. Yes, it is so true that having the sense of the boundaries, it helps you to align with like the greatest place for you to be. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's been so enriching for me, and I know that people who've been participating and the people who will watch this, the replay of it, will get so much out of it. And we have one more comment here from Aretha. She said, "Yes, me too. I stopped that conversation immediately about veterans. I'm retired Air Force member."
And I think the identities that we kind of label ourselves with are very different from what men label themselves with. So every now and then I stop labeling myself as a veteran. But every now and then I have to have that conversation, or else people are going to continue to believe what veterans look like are clean cut white men who never grow beards out, and they wear those hats and stuff. But
Right.
Aretha and myself are veterans, and this is what veterans look like.
Totally. Oh, thank you, Rhonda. Oh, Rhonda, thank you. She enjoyed it too.
Thank you, Katrina.
No problem.
I'm not muted, am I?
No, you're not. You're good.
I've been muted all evening. Thank you, Katrina. You know these questions were coming, right?
I did not, and I'm so
You didn't
sorry.
read? It comes to you in your when you schedule.
And
The automatic email tells you exactly what's
good. That would have been phony baloney, and now,
yeah. It tells you these 3 questions are coming. Thank you. And I just want to just clarify. So for the marginalization question, we ask the question not for woe is me, right? Not so that we can lament discrimination or, being placed at the margin or being excluded. We ask the question because, one, we do service marginalized and BIPOC, people from marginalized and BIPOC groups. But many of the people who will watch this, who are watching now, who may be even on this live right now, have been marginalized or are sitting in a situation right now where they are being marginalized. And we ask the question so that people can see that our presenters, who are all successful in their own right, have had these experiences and they've overcome them, right? Because we do know that many people allow instances of marginalization to stop them from moving forward. And so when people hear, your response and Diana's response, and who do we have on yesterday, and Yeti's response to, yes, I was marginalized. However, right, in spite of, I still, right, it helps other people. So that's one reason we do it. And then in March, it was in March because I interviewed a young man in March, and he was talking about a situation of marginalization. And I think it was in March. And someone contacted me from the dominant class and said, I am an ally, but I do that in the workplace to people. Right? And so this is why I like tea time. I'm going to tell you honestly, I do not like asking people those questions because I do not think that people will be honest. And this is just my own personal experience. But I do like tea time. I like to, this is what happened. This is how I felt, right? This is when it happened. I like that. I do that, but not so gracefully. Not so gracefully, right? But this person did not realize that that act that they had been doing consistently was something that was marginalizing someone in their own workplace, only understood it because someone came on here and said that people in my workplace have done this to me, and that was how I was marginalized. So even though that wasn't the intent of that question, I am so glad that that person reached out to me and said thank you. And because I realized that I was doing something that I was marginalizing someone. It's much like I said, do the men who mansplain me know? They know when I tell them, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, right? That's when they know. So, yeah, so now that's just a new reason for that question, because I'm hoping that there are more people out there like that person who reached out to me who actually saw their action in your example of marginalization, or that, right? They saw that slight that they did to someone and understands that, no, that wasn't right. And why are they now seeing it? Because no one had tea time with them, or no one said to them, this was wrong, right? So that's why we asked the question. The second question is my favorite question. I love it. You know, what would you say to yourself in any other time? And then the third is because we share so much on when you're chatting. You know, you say so much that's on the slide, and then these things that you didn't think would come up that are not on the slide. But I want to know, like, okay, all of that came out, but what is it that you really want us to walk away with, that you believe will really help us set those personal boundaries or be true to ourselves, you know, if we get that one thing? So that's the questions. And I'm sorry, you're the first person. I'm like, oh my gosh, she didn't know. Like, oh my gosh.
I'm always
so, yeah. So that, but thank you. I appreciate you from coming. You're not the first person to cry. Usually you guys make me cry all the time. People cry, so don't worry about that. People get emotional all the time. And I love it because it just means that we're doing hard work. We're working from the heart, right? We're doing work that is meaningful. And I think you are like many of the people who have come on, and myself included, that the work is not just helping your clients or your listeners, but the work is also helping and healing you. And so that I love, you know, so whatever comes up, you know, that's just what it is. And yeah, we deal with it, you know, it's okay. But yes, so that's what I have. I thank you so much. I thank you, Diana. So this was thank you all for joining. This was our Corona Days Professional Development Groups, Professionals of Excellence, and Katrina Strohl. I said it right, Strohl? Is a professional of excellence, and so is Diana, right? So is Diana Roy Notice. So I thank you all for rocking with us this evening. Remember, if you found value in this discussion, this conversation tonight, what you can do is share it. Just share it on your own social media platform. You don't have to tag anyone in it. You don't have to send it in anyone's inbox. Just share it so that other people can find value from this evening's discussion. You know, I appreciate you all. I thank you for supporting CDPD. If you came on late, let us know. If you're a replay, let us know that you came in on the replay. If you're not connected to Diana or Katrina, please connect with them and follow us or join Corona Days Professional Development Group. Thank you all for coming out. God bless you and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
All right.